Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UK session for TTR. New week, and we've been away for a couple of weeks. Given that we've been in Bali and had a wonderful time there, it was really nice to catch up with all the traders and, of course, all the clients that came along as well, who had an absolute ball. Thought they landed in heaven, I think, with all the traders there and all the information that was shared and swapped. And amazing time is Bali. So if you get the chance ever to go to Bali for the trading retreat, then highly recommend it to you. Of course, I came back a little bit on the worse for wear side, I'd have to say, given that the week is very, very long, and even into the night we just keep going, and it's a very, very trying time. But it's great to mix with all the traders and the clients as well. So again, I say great time, and if you ever get the chance, come and join us, and we'd love to see you there, of course. Okay, what's happening today? Well, I'm waiting for Ash to come in, and I'm very, very keen to talk to him about what happened over the weekend with the EU leaders agreeing, as it appears. Well, they did agree to the Brexit deal. And now, of course, it goes back on to Theresa May to take that to her House of Commons and battle and strive and kick and do whatever she has to do to get it across the line. Be very, very keen to see what Ash thinks about that. When he does come in, he'll be joining us very, very shortly. So it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts when the UK session does open. And we see the pound, which is probably expected to benefit from that news over the weekend. Not too sure about the FTSE. Ash will have a great insight into that as well when he comes in with us. And the euro, of course, that will be under the spotlight as well. So a few things to look forward to today in terms of how the market's going to react to that event over the weekend, where the EU leaders did in fact rubber stamp the agreement that Theresa May, the Brexit agreement that now must go through, as I say, the House of Commons. What else is happening today, or this week, in fact? Let's have a look at the Forex factory and see what we're likely to, or is likely to shape the markets. Of course, we've got both the Bank of England Governor, Mr. Carney, and the ECB President, Mario Draghi, speaking to us today, 4.5 hours apart. And of course, we've got to wait another, what's that, 5 hours and 24 minutes or something like that, 5 hours and 25 minutes. I'd say it'd be damn near sleep time for me by then, but I'd like to be free trading in the market when one or both of those guys actually have a bit of a chat, because they're likely to move it, I would think, especially given what we've witnessed over the weekend. I was a little bit interested, and I was surprised is the word, to see that the market opened slight gaps, but nothing too dramatic on both the pound euro. I haven't had a look at the FTSE because I don't trade it, but Ash will give us a good look at that one as well. So they're both talking today. Tomorrow we've got Kiwi news, basically. Well, tomorrow night, I guess, and overnight into Wednesday, when we get a thing called the Financial Stability Report coming out of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. Consumer confidence coming out of the States. Got a funny feeling that it'd have to be okay, wouldn't it? They're forecasting a miss to the downside on the previous, but that's interesting. What else have we got? Bank stress test results on Wednesday, and the preliminary GDP figures coming out of the States. Fed Chairman Powell will speak on Wednesday as well, and on Thursday we're looking at more Kiwi news with business confidence figures coming out. Private capital expenditure comes out of Australia on Thursday as well, and that's interesting. That's tipped to be a good number, well, comparative to the previous number anyway, which I guess was a disappointment at -2.5. That's kind of saying that people are keeping their money in their pockets, and that's not what they want. Private capital expenditure on Thursday for the Aussie, and then I don't know if it's no, I don't think it is the headline of the week, actually. I think Draghi and not so much Powell, but probably Draghi and Carney speaking will be the highlights of the week for me, and probably the major event turners or trend turners, if you like, if that's going to be the case. But the FOMC meeting minutes come out as well. I don't know who's spoken since the FOMC statement. Generally, you'll find that if somebody from the Fed has had a chat to press or Senate committees or all sorts of people that they normally chat to, since the FOMC statement came out, then these minutes are probably not as impactful as they would otherwise be. And the reason for that, of course, is whatever was probably said in that minutes or in that meeting has probably been leaked to either the press or the Senate or whomever. And therefore, there's probably nothing new in that. But if nobody's really spoken since then, I guess it's got the potential to move things somewhat dramatically. On Friday, the CADs the Canadians wrap things up with their GDP figures month on month. And the market will probably be on its own. Well, certainly not. I won't be interested in it. We'll have to see the result of that next Monday. Okay, so what do I think about the markets? Well, as I said before, I looked at the euro and I looked at the pound, and what I saw kind of surprised me a little. I was expecting a more substantial gap than what I saw, if I saw any, around the place. And let's have a look at the euro first up, because that's where I normally park myself most of the time. And you can see that there wasn't really much at all went on there this morning in terms of open. But since then, the market has liked what it's heard over the weekend, and the euro has rallied. If we have a look at the pound and go to the 4-hour chart, we can see that hasn't really happened too much on. Well, it has, I suppose, if you go to a smaller time frame, but it's not that dramatic. We've simply gone to the daily pivot, which is a bit of a shame, really, because that's one of my favourite plays when we've got an untested daily pivot. But that's not to be the case today. As soon as we've got there, we've found resistance. You can see that big move on Thursday. What a cracker! Woohoo! That was a cracker on Thursday. What was the news on Thursday? I wasn't trading, obviously. Thursday, I was having the week off, 22nd. Theresa May spoke, 12:39. I'm assuming that's what moved that. Interesting. I really haven't had a look at last week's charts because I wasn't trading, having the week off after Bali. Actually, I'll have an opinion on that as well. That's very interesting. I wonder what was said there, but wow, what a movement. And now we're back where we started, I guess. I guess that had to do with Brexit. One could only imagine. So what do we do? What do we think? Is this deal or rubber stamping by the EU actually going to make this cross rally, or is it not? The market doesn't seem to have an opinion too much at the moment. Certainly through early trade, we've seen a little bit of movement, but it's not skyrocket stuff by any stretch of the imagination. Let's see what happens when London opens in about 20 minutes from now. It should be interesting. Just getting a message from Ash. Hang on 2 secs, guys, and I'll be back with you in a tick. Sorry about that. Obviously, he's having a bit of a struggle, so we'll wait and see what the outcome of that is. In the meantime, I'm just going to leave I'll leave Brexit alone, and okay, he's looks like he's in another show. It could be interesting. So obviously you guys are in with me. I don't know who's in with him. I think he's coming over to me. So we'll see how we go in a tick. I'm going to leave Brexit alone for a minute because Ash is probably all over that far better than I am. I'm more a technical trader than a fundamental trader. And he'll be very, very keen to have a chat about what's happening or what has happened thus far in over the weekend, as I say. So let's start with the Aussie, shall we? Aussie is interesting. I've got the Aussie looking for a lower high, but I think this is an interesting point here, the weekly pivot of last week, where we failed to really take on the highs, and that's the first lower high really in my book. But then we put in a higher low. So
hi, mate.
G'day, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. So I'll go on.
I'll just finish this off and I'll come to you.
No worries.
So, yeah, to me, it's a very, very interesting one. If this high goes, then I'm an Aussie bull. But if that high holds, I think I'm an Aussie bear still. In fact, if we got a lower high here, I am an Aussie bear for sure, coming off the top here and then going back into the range. That's what I'll be looking for. So we'll see how that pans out, and that'll probably be one of my interesting plays if we do see a lower high here on a 4-hour chart and a bit of a rejection bar. I'll be all for it. Mate, did she do it, or she got still a long hill to climb? But it appears she got a rubber stamp.
Just a quick apology. Actually, I was in a different show.
Was it good?
No, it was very lonely.
Well, there you go.
I sent out a link, and then you sent out a link, but I was following my link and not your link.
Linked, okay, LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, it was the Google Hangouts link. I think I got a bit confused.
Mate, I've been waiting to have a chat because it is very interesting that the EU leaders have rubber stamped the agreement as put forward, and now it's got to go through the House of Commons. That's going to be a battle, of course, and is that why we're not seeing a big move thus far today, or are we just waiting for London Open to see?
Do you know what? It's a really tricky one. It's a difficult one to call, because the thing with her getting it through the Commons is that she's got a lot of kickback. You know, there was an interview with the DUP leader, and the DUP are part of the coalition effectively in this country. You know, they needed about another 15 to 20 seats for the Conservatives to get into power, and they did a deal with a party called the DUP from Ireland and Northern Ireland, and the sticking point for a lot of the Northern Irish is the fact that we've got this backstop, which effectively cuts off Northern Ireland from the UK, and it kind of leaves it within a part of the EU. And it was one of the things that Theresa May had to agree with. And it's a very complex political issue because of the Republic of Northern Ireland are two separate countries effectively, but they are part of the same landmass, a very small landmass as well. And there was a lot of problems. Yes, very much so, very much like that, very much like Catalonia is to Spain.
Yep.
But the only difference is that Catalonia is obviously part of Spain still, whereas the Northern and Republic of Ireland have actually separated, and there was a lot of terrorism and civil war
just
up until the 80s. Yeah, which enough about, but the But that causes a problem. That whole thing has caused a problem, and it's caused a problem in as much that that Eileen Foster, the leader, has come out and said it's just not acceptable. So that's a problem in as much that that's her power under a lot of stress. That's her power party. It's her extra party that she needs, those extra MPs, and that puts her power under a lot of stress, and they could effectively pull out of a deal that backs the government. So that's going to put the government under stress. We already kind of know, or maybe you guys don't know, but there's a lot of kickback with the MPs, because she hasn't managed to appease the Brexiteers who want the Boris Johnson kind of deal. She hasn't managed to appease the Remainers who just want to stay. So really, the only person that likes this deal effectively is Theresa May. But she is
and the EU leaders apparently.
And the EU leaders are happy enough with it. Yeah, and they're basically saying that this is the only deal. But there's still
But
politicians.
Does that then sway the police, or does it not?
The politicians.
Yeah. Does the fact that the EU are happy to agree with that, does that then say to the politicians, oh, these guys are happy with that, then why shouldn't we?
Well, this is the thing that I find the most interesting is that the politicians that aren't happy with the deal, the DUP and Labour, still believe they can get a better deal. They're not coming out and saying no deal at all. They come out and saying go back and renegotiate. And we know the EU leaders are saying this is it. So I don't know where they're getting their idea that the EU are going to come out and give and offer this miraculously better deal. I'm not really sure where that's coming from, but politicians seem to believe that that there's a better deal out there, and until that deal is put back, then they're not going to sign it off. So
okay,
at this stage,
confused because as far as I'm concerned, they've now signed another deal.
The bottom line is that at this stage, it does not look like it's going to get through Parliament. And that leaves us with one of, I guess, three options. One is no deal. One is just suck it up and go with the Theresa May deal. Or three is a referendum, another referendum. And is obviously
so what you're saying, nothing's changed.
Not really. No, not really. I mean, the only thing that the fact that the EU have signed something off, I think, is quite interesting. And if we look at the how this converts to charts, that the chart I find the most interesting is this euro pound, because the euro pound has been when we look at this on a daily chart. In fact, let me bring the daily chart over here instead. Look at this on a daily chart. The euro pound is very.
I can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry, buddy. All right, let me bring this up. There we go. Why can't I share? Let me see if I can share. There we go. How's that?
Nothing.
Okay, let me bring this over here and do this and do this.
Yep.
Okay, we got it right. Okay, so so this is the daily chart on the euro. Now the euro is obviously, when we look at the daily chart, it's kind of it broke down this level, and it might even be just a shade lower that that people are looking at, which is not too far away from where we are. But the most interesting aspect of this is that pushing forward here, it brings us to this weekly pivot. So the question is, do we effectively have a higher low here, a little bit of a higher low with this inverted hammer? Or is this actually a bit of a breakdown of structure, and we'd like to see this go lower? And at this stage, this is euro pound. Yeah, this is euro pound. And I think at this stage, what we've seen is when there's been any rhetoric from the EU that there might be a deal passed, the pound has rallied, and there hasn't been a problem with the fact that it's got to get through the Commons. So I think that the most likely thing to happen, just going on past history, is that in fact there's a nice area of resistance there. I think the most likely thing to happen here is that the pound does rally today. So I think we're just waiting for a little bit more confirmation, and I think we can go long the pound against certainly some of these pairs. And I think the euro's actually a really good option. I think the euro is fundamentally weak. We didn't see particularly good numbers on Friday from Germany. It looks like this trade war is affecting the euro, and we are seeing the euro also quite. I find the euro quite interesting generally. Against the dollar. I also looking at it as a potential a weak chart. I was looking at a potential left head, right shoulder here, but this isn't deep enough really for me to call it a right shoulder. So I think there's resistance here. And I think that resistance is kind of seen again through some of these pivots. Didn't quite get to the weekly pivot, but if it shoves under this this daily pivot, then I think there's a short euro opportunity here. I don't know how you feel about that. I do kind of class you as
two things with the euro, and I'm looking at the daily chart. If you go back to last week on. The week before last on Wednesday, that big reversal bar.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then go to last week on Tuesday, another big reversal bar.
This one, yeah.
Yep. That's confirmation to me that we're going to test these low out again. So
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. So I'd actually quite like a euro short if I could get it. So I think I'd like to see how this establishes itself. But as I say, I think euro short against the dollar, and I think euro short against the pound. You know, and I'm not 100% on the pound. The pound's a very, very difficult market to trade because of the sentiment, but that sentiment probably won't kick in till just before Christmas. So I think we could actually see some buying with the pound up until Christmas, until we see, you know, whether the deal will get passed. It'll be a bit of speculation right now. Theresa May's got a bit of time to try and convince people that her deal's good. Now, the one thing I would say is that there's no doubt about it. The deal is not a good deal. The deal's not good for Brexiteers and it's not good for Remainers. However, Theresa May continues to surprise. And could this actually be the significant aspect of her legacy, that she just does not give up, and to the point that that people eventually just kind of go with her? And it could be that this may be the final. The final curtain call for her, and it might be that this is the one step she can't get through and can't get past. But she's pretty popular, I have to say. The prior Labour leader, Tony Blair, was on giving an interview on Sunday as well, and he is very much a backer for the Remain campaign and for another referendum. But he still had to concede the respect that he has for Theresa May, because he says, I've done this job and it is a hard job, and she continues to surprise, and she continues to be stubborn enough not to give up. So there's a lot of respect for Theresa May. I think she's an incredibly able woman, and she continues to surprise me. I don't particularly agree with her, but I've got to respect her. You know, she's not only has she managed to survive in the way she has, but not at one point can I remember has she not done it with dignity. You know, she's a very, very dignified lady. She's not come out and spit feathers, or thrown a dummy out of the pram or anything like that. So that's the only caveat. If anybody can do it, I think it's her.
You seem to breed these politician ladies are tough over there. The old Iron Pants. Is it what, Iron Pants or Iron Lady?
The Iron Lady. Yeah. Do you know what? It's a funny thing, because when Theresa May first came in, there was a lot of comparisons to Margaret Thatcher, and she almost tried to take on the mantle when she did her first PMQs, Prime Minister's Question Time. She almost mirrored some of Margaret Thatcher's mannerisms, but it really didn't suit her, because, and I think she almost, got kind of swept away with the press aspect of it. But Theresa May's, she's a highly respected and a brilliant and hard politician in her own right. And I think that now she's starting to show that she doesn't need the Iron Lady mantle. She can just kind of go ahead and just be Theresa May. You know, she's very, very good. I've got a lot of respect for her. So I wouldn't be surprised if this came through. It's a shame. This, the only thing for me is that it's a shame with Theresa May. It's a shame that she isn't showing the same resilience on something that I believe in, on a personal level. But that's it. That's it. Because I'd love her. Yeah. What I really wanted to say is that this is ridiculous, and let's just give the whole thing a wide berth, because what's about to happen, and this could be quite significant, is that the government now has to show the country. They have to do a report to show the country what the economic effects on Brexit are going to be, and it's going to be this deal, and they're going to kind of like calculate what the economic effects going to be versus staying in. And we know what the economics effects will be of staying in.
But don't they have to have talks that actually make those or create those deals before they can actually judge them? They haven't actually done that.
Talks? What do you mean talks?
Between the EU and if they are, I guess, the Brexiteers, those talks about the trade deals that must be done.
No, it's done. That's all done.
They're sealed, signed, sealed, delivered, and that was part of the weekend.
Yeah, it's all been signed.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you know, to be fair to what you're asking me, that the politicians are saying that they've got, you know, 70% of what they want, and in time they're looking to get 100%. So yeah, there is a potential argument for us to go back and negotiate some other bits and pieces, but it's effectively everything's, you know, down and in black and white and been signed off. So
okay, so it's more than in principle. It's actually the deals are signed if they exit.
Yes.
Brexit. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Mate, I guess with 4 minutes to go before we open, we haven't even spoken about the FTSE yet. Are you likely to trade it at the open?
So the FTSE has been a little bit of a tricky one for me, and I'm a little frustrated with the FTSE, and I've got to be very, very careful that that emotion doesn't come into this, because the trade on the I was trying to trade the FTSE here, and which was effectively at this area here on the daily chart. There was a little bit of support there, but it kept kicking me. In fact, no, it was this low here. I was trying to trade it there, but it kept kicking me out because I really wanted to try and get the low, and it kicked me out once and for all here. And then it started to rally, and now it's kind of off to the races a little bit. It needed to get through this level. This daily pivot on Friday was quite key, and I suspect that's probably going to be quite a contentious area. So I do want to go long, and I'm going to be looking to go long somewhere along this line. It looks to me like 69.75 ish. But we could be looking at as low as the weekly pivot. So if it started to come down and touch this weekly pivot, then I'm looking for a long. The slightly tricky thing again is catalyst. You know, what's driving the FTSE? The pound isn't driving the FTSE because, as I say, I believe the pound will possibly rally from here a little bit. The trade wars kind of are going to. They are kind of going to drive the FTSE a little bit, because they're a little bit, so they've been pushed back a little bit. You know, there's been a little bit more of a soft rhetoric about the trade wars. So I will go long on the FTSE, but let's see if we get it this morning. My suspicion is it might be later this afternoon where I'm going to be having to go long. I think the FTSE might just leave me behind a little bit, and then possibly come down, which might even change things. You know, if it gets up to these highs, then I think the short is probably back on, because really when we look at this daily chart, the FTSE is certainly in a downtrend, and it's started to push significantly lower.
Nice little channel it's forming there too.
It is. And you know, before we could have looked at this inverted head and shoulders, but that inverted head and shoulders kind of gave way here. We had one more chance to get up, but then it started to sell off again. This bullish bar does suggest that we possibly do have a base for a low down here. But it's really, you know, it's just been unable to catch a bid. This is the weekly chart. And again, nothing to suggest that that this is a good place for us to start picking up long as yet, until we start looking a little bit towards the RSI, which is suggesting that the momentum to the downside has started to weaken. And again, you know, we look at the RSI on the daily chart, and it's just kind of formed a little bit of a channel down here, which is starting to suggest that the upside may well be on. And I've been after 72.20 for quite some time, but last week I was starting to think maybe it's just not going to get there. We got fairly close. Maybe it's not going to get there, but I still have a long bias. If it's just opened up, so let's see if it comes down and gives us an entry down here. It might well do. So if it pops down, then I'm going to go long, especially if it happens nice and early. But if it draws out during, for most of the day, then I think I'm going to have to accept that I'm going to miss it, and I'm going to have to just try and catch the next wave.
Always tomorrow, mate.
Exactly. Well, this is the thing. There's always tomorrow. There's always Wednesday. There's always Thursday. Have we checked news? Well, that's the only other thing.
Yeah, I did have a look, and to be fair, not a lot about FOMC minutes later in the week, but I think probably what Draghi says and what Carney says as a result of the weekend may be interesting. That may affect and may influence, I guess, what traders are going to think of this.
Well, what about the Brexit thing?
Yep.
Yeah. I see. I've got Carney tonight. What's he talking about? Discuss new book by Alan Greenspan. Oh, that doesn't look to me like it's going to be.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah. So a new book by Alan Greenspan, which is called "Capitalism in America: A History." So that doesn't look like that. That's significant, does it? And then Tuesday we've got a few bits and pieces from New Zealand, and bank stress test for the pound on Wednesday. I'll bring this over here. Preliminary GDP. This could be quite significant. Chairman Powell. I mean, it's all a little bit messy, isn't it? When you sort of like think that any data coming out of the UK is just going to be pretty hard to. Yeah, you see the FTSE's gone, and that's really frustrating for me because I should have been able to get this low down here. The only thing is that getting kicked out down here and then coming up and failing, it could have actually looked like it was going to weaken again. And it's very, very difficult to trade on a Friday and leave a trade open over the weekend because anything can happen. And where this gapped up, it could have gapped down. But it's been difficult, the FTSE, because actually some of the best trades have been on a Friday, and getting in on the Friday and staying with it. And that's the tough thing. That's the tough aspect of this. But I suspect we probably will actually see a significant rally now from the FTSE, and that's as I say, a little frustrating. As you say, there's always another potential opportunity, and I'll have to see what will possibly drive this, because the problem is the FTSE is in a downtrend. So going long it makes the whole thing just a little bit more of a tricky prospect. So you've got to get the timing right, as I found on Friday.
Yeah, you don't want to be buying at that price either.
No, it's got to come back. I mean, as I say, around about the weekly pivot, I'm interested. Anything other than that, I'm not interested. What I quite like now, though, when I now look at the euro and coming back to this chart, what I quite like now is that the euro has managed to form a little bit of a base around about this daily pivot. And if I come down to some short-term time frames, now what I've got is a structure here. So if this structure does break down, then we get the retest. I'd quite like to go short at this daily pivot. If it doesn't do that, then I'm going to completely ignore it, unless this weekly pivot gives me some other lower high. But I quite like this on the 15-minute chart right now if the euro is to weaken.
Also looking at the pound, I agree with you, and we'll have a look at that. I want to have a look at the pound chart if I can.
Yeah. You want to grab the screen?
Yep, doing it. And I don't know if you were about on Thursday. I wasn't trading on last week at all, pretty much. And I noticed when I opened the charts up that this happened on Thursday. Was this around Brexit? This is cable.
Yes, it was. Now, when was that, on Thursday, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what happened on Thursday? It was something did happen, and I can't remember what it was. It was something like, from memory. Oh, do you know what I think it was? It may well have been Theresa May's speech. It may well have been her speech.
Right.
Yes, it was. It was to do with her in the Commons. Now let me just have another look for that, because they did actually add it to Forex Factory.
Yeah, while you're looking, the reason I'm looking at it now is it's really interesting because we've come back below the monthly pivot with a big bearish bar. We couldn't take the lows out, but we've now consolidated underneath the weekly pivot, and as expected, there's been a little bit of buying today on both. If I go back on the smaller time frames, on both Asia session and now the start of London session, but they've been held up by this pivot again. It's interesting. I would have expected there'll be momentum here, but this candle here has been completely erased in the space of, well, now it's, in the space of 24 hours, really.
Yeah.
A little bit more than that, I guess. That's suggesting to me that technically we're bearish. Yet it's very, very difficult to think short here, given what's happened.
Let me give you just a slightly different spin on that. Just thinking about literally just the fundamentals, not nothing else, but just talking about the fundamentals.
Yes.
So the bullish bar that we got was about the speech. Now I watched that speech. I watched her in Parliament deliver that speech, and I have to say she was a little unconvincing when she was tested by people that had resigned from her cabinet that were negotiating Brexit. So Boris Johnson challenged her on something, as did Dominic Raab. And she was a little unconvincing. Most of the other answers she gave with a lot of confidence, very little pausing. But when she spoke about those particular to those particular politicians, there was a lot of pausing, and she got a little bit unstuck. And I'm not sure whether that was because they know something that she doesn't want them to disclose, or whether that she accepts that what she's saying isn't completely accurate. I'm not sure. It was difficult to say, but the pound rallied off the back of her speech, and it was quite a positive speech on the whole about her deal. Now, the sell-off was happening because after that, there was still confusion. There was still, there was nothing signed. All it was Theresa May saying, "I've got this thing. I've got it. I've got this thing, guys. Just believe in me." Now, since then, we've had the ratification. So my belief is that yes, the sell-off, the drift back to the downside was probably because there was still the meeting that had to take place, and my belief is that people were probably just going to wait for that meeting to make sure that she was going to get the deal, because the pound could have tanked from this point if she didn't get that deal ratified. But now it's been ratified, I think we're probably much more likely to drift back to the upside. Now you can see that there's a lack of conviction, but I think we start to see the pound strengthen, and if you look at that on an hourly chart. Now I know we've got our pivots in the way here, but that hourly chart from this morning is just starting to kind of give us some upside, isn't it? It's just if it can close above this level and maybe even close above that those two pivots, that's going to look pretty bullish to me.
It is, yeah.
Especially if you draw a trend line from the high of that speech bar, of the green bar. Give me a trend line there and extrapolate down to the right. That's going to look really bullish. We're going to have that break of that what looks to me like some sort of falling wedge, and then we could try and pick that one back up on the higher low. So let's just see what happens here, because if this hourly finishes above that line by 9 o'clock, then I think between the 9 and 10 o'clock hour, we could be trying to go long the pound. And I think that would be quite an interesting trade. And I think for me, I've got to switch allegiance to a degree, because I can't justify trading the FTSE 100, but I can justify trading the pound. I have a reason to trade the pound. My belief is that there's enough meat on the bones for right now for us to get a rally in the pound of some description. Now how deep and strong that rally is a little bit questionable, but I think I think that there could be some strength in the pound, and I don't particularly think that's going to affect the FTSE on a day like today, and unless we really see the pound pick up some pace. But let's let the charts tell us, because at this stage there's still a lack of conviction.
Is there a case at all for the reverse? Is there any case for the pound fundamentally to go short?
Not at this stage. Not at this stage. No. There's
because if you could give me some, I'd be happy to go short now.
Well, I no, not at this stage. No, I mean the only thing that you could trade the pound short on is speculation that she's not going to get it through. But my personal take on that is it's way too early. I think that we probably get a little bit cleared up now. We kind of cut things, calm down a little bit, and I think the that calming down aspect is probably enough for us to just probably hold tight, a little bit, and see. and see if there's any validity in us kind of drifting to the upside. I don't think that there's a case to go short personally. The fundamentals actually have been, the actual numbers out of the UK have been fairly solid. They haven't been too bad at all. But the question is going to come from maybe later on down the line when we see whether she can get it through Parliament, and I just think it's too early for people to be guessing about that right now. My personal take on the pound is that we probably will rally from here. I don't know how significantly, and I don't know whether it's going to be explosive, but my personal take on it is that we should be looking for the longs rather than the shorts in the pound.
I've got a funny feeling if it does go, it's going to go, and we won't get a chance. That's my feeling, because if this is based on a fundamental tenet, which it certainly appears that it will be, then I don't think we'll get a chance here. I think it'll just go. But we'll see. I can't trade it at the moment long until we get clear of here.
Yeah, well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, there's, we and this is the thing about being a technician. Probably, our fundamental aspect is going to give us a bias of direction, but ultimately, as technicians, we know that that these pivots can play a huge part in freezing things up and stopping things. You don't have to check what happened with the previous weekly pivot and how the pound refused at that level after kind of meandering around it. And then again, I see a little move to the downside, then back up to the daily pivot. And again, it started to tank to the downside. So as technicians, we know how important this is. I think what's quite key with this one, though, is that if it clears above the weekly pivot, it's taken out both areas.
Absolutely. And the trend line that you pointed out before. And
the trend line that, yeah, exactly. And to do a... I'm just going to give you one thing here. That's the was that the pound? Which pound is that? Is that the pound dollar?
Pound dollar is the one I was looking at. This one, yeah.
Yeah, the pound dollar. So when I'm just going to take the screen 1 second here. I mean, I'm not sure whether the pound dollar is necessarily the best option for us. But so now when I look at this and I look at this as a potential falling wedge. Click in. There we go. That's what it kind of looks like. It maybe even a triangle rather than a falling wedge. But that would suggest to me that that there is some significant upside back to this point. Now I'm going to check what that area would give me, and to see whether there is an area there. Yeah, you see, that does give me this area here.
Mm-hmm.
And that does, and that's quite. I mean, you can see how significant that level is.
Sure.
So I think it does need to get through that point, of course, which could also cause a little bit of an issue. We're not too far away. In actual fact, that would be a great place to take profit, because there would be a little bit more room potentially from the measured move. But when I look at this, if it does start to fly forward here, it looks to me like this point would meet these highs here, and that would be a really good place to take profit. So aiming for 129.25 ish, I think would be a really good trade, and I'd be kind of keen on that.
All right, we'll keep our eye on it.
This is the thing. The picture has to unfold, doesn't it? We haven't got.
I'm not seeing a trade. I can definitely say that I'm not seeing a trade.
Yeah,
I'm seeing more questions than answers, really, at the moment.
Yeah. Me too. And as you say, we may well miss it. It might not. It might be one of those that the fortune will favour the brave in this particular point. But I know, as you do, that in the long run, fortune doesn't favour the brave. Fortune favours the prepared. So I just think that at this particular stage, we've just got to be professional and wait. And as I say, I've got this is the and case in point on the FTSE. Case in point on the FTSE, I had this bar. I had bars that were holding. I had this bar really nice area. It certainly looked like, you know, along here to go long, and it just dipped again, and now it's kind of off to the races, which is incredibly frustrating. But this is where I guess fortune did not favour the brave, and as much as it looked like there was enough preparation in place at this point, this area down here should have been given much more consideration from my mind, you know, to my mind, and really I should have gone long again down here. But
it looks good now, doesn't it?
do you know what? I saw it as well, and I was going to trade it, but by that time, it had churned me up enough to kind of to set enough doubts in my mind to kind of go, I need to step back. I need to step back and wait for the next wave, which is now what I've got to do. And I think that's the thing, is that the weekend is a great time to kind of recalibrate. And I was kind of pleased that the weekend ended up coming. Because now I can just wait, because you know what's going on today, and this is the interesting thing, and I'd love you to find a quote of the day for this, actually, mate. And it's that mindset that you're kind of looking at charts like this, and you're seeing a rally going on. You know, you're seeing this rally going on with the FTSE, and you're thinking, oh, you know, could have gone long here, could have gone long. But the thing is, the key with this is that the price is so bad that that yes, you could kind of make money on, you know, in a strong market like this when it's moving to the upside, but you never know when the other market is going to come into place. You know, you never know when the other side of it's going to happen. So you just got to kind of wait until you get your what you've described before the trade, if you see what I'm saying, to take the trade. And again, back to this euro pound, I really want this to go short, and I would quite happily take this short. And all I'm waiting for now, really, is just to get a little bit of a return to this level. Maybe it needs to take out this low as well. I don't know, but I'd like to see it bounce here, come back up to this level and fail, and I'm quite happy to take this short. Nice tight stop, and we can see what's going to come out of this.
Sorry, mate, I'm looking.
You're looking at what? Sorry, buddy. Oh, no,
I'm looking for your quote.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I probably I don't know how to reference the quote, but yeah, I think a quote of something to do with fortune favoring the prepared. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Maybe that's our quote, and we just write our own book.
That'll do.
But the thing is not to get snowblind, isn't it? Yeah, and that's my point, is that when things are off to the races and you've missed them, like I have with the FTSE, you've just got to kind of look at it and enjoy, in a way, the fact that you've missed it, and the fact that you picked right, maybe, and the fact that you're now waiting for the next thing that looked the same as the thing that you missed.
Yeah, there's something here by Buffett. It's not spot on, but it's in the ballpark. He says, our stay put behavior reflects our view that the stock market serves as a relocation center at which money is moved from the active to the patient. We continue to make more money when snoring than when active. The only value of stock forecasters is to make fortune tellers look good. My favorite time frame is forever. It's not quite there, but it'll do. It'll do for now. Mate, the majors are doing quite well against the dollar this morning.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yeah. Yen's very weak again. Yeah, I think we're looking for retracements on the Aussie at the moment. It looks strong. And
I may be getting my.
The interesting one, I suppose, is the one we've been looking at.
Which one's that?
Well, if the pound cannot break through these pivots and the others are taking off, that's saying something else, isn't it?
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, I'd love to go short with a pound euro. I'm not sure whether I've got. You know what? There is enough detail here for me to go short. I might well be able to take this short here. Let me see if I can get into this market here.
What do you got? Euro pound.
Yeah, I quite like the euro pound. Let me just do a little bit of calculation and see what I've got. 89.21. I'm going to put a stop at 0.8921, so a little bit higher up. Pending order. Um, 8835. Right, I'm just going to work out the value of this. Oh no, that's a bit high. That's fours. Okay, so 460. Okay, I'm going to go short here with the euro pound. I'm just going to make sure I have got. Yeah, I'm going to try a short here with the euro pound.
Okay.
So that's in the market. That might be a bit more than I wanted, actually. It's twos, right? Fours is twos. So I've gone in at the market. You can see. I'm going to put on another trade. So I'm just going to deal with this trade. One moment, mate, and I'll be back with you.
Okay, I'll take a screen and go through a couple of things I'm looking at, if I can. Bingo. Okay, so I'm looking at these majors, Aussie, Euro, and Pound against the dollar, and seeing a very interesting scenario take place. We've seen today already the Aussie has broken through the daily pivot and through the weekly pivot. Not dissimilar to what the Pound situation was. The Pound has yet to do that, although it's looking very, very likely that it is going to happen. If I go switch to the 30-minute chart, it certainly looks likely that we're going to get through those pivots, but that's certainly not done. It's not a done deal. And if we can't get through here, we've got the Aussie. I won't say in free air, but it's in relative comfort zone. We've got the euro, which has broken and retested the daily pivot, taking on the weekly pivot, similar to what the pound is. So here's the interesting area for both the euro and the pound today. If we can see, as we are now, some bullish activity, maybe a close above the weekly pivot on the smaller time frames, and then maybe a little bit of a pullback, that might be the time to get in. I was biased short this cross, and still am until we get through here. And the same, I think, can be said for me of the pound. If we can't get through here, I am looking for short-term downside. But of course, as we've been saying throughout the show, if this does break, then this could well go and could go very fast, in my opinion, up to here. So this is a very, very interesting state of affairs. And with 5 minutes to go in the 30-minute bar, it may be the precursor to what I'll be looking at a little bit later on. I'm going to hang around here. I'm just going to hang around and see if I can sniff something out. The Aussie seems to be in a bit of clear air, but we do have, I guess, last week's weekly pivot. This is very interesting, as I said before, because we've come back below the pivots here. We've come back to the weekly pivot and we've retested it, put in a reversal bar there. Then we've gone into, well, I won't say consolidation, but we've had a little bit of a drift to the downside, if you like, put in a higher low. And now we're looking at this high as the testing material today, I believe. I don't think that's got a future, that trend line. That doesn't need to be there. The critical area here is definitely this one. And if this holds and we get a reversal bar here, I think there's probably a case to trade it not too far down. Probably be looking at these lows, so that would be my target area. So what I'm saying is we could potentially go into a range here, and that range could well be, you know, here and here, and I'll be happy to trade that to the downside. I'd want a reason. I wouldn't just let this hit and stop on that level and say, right, time to go short. I'll be digging down into the smaller time frames to have a look at that. But that's where I'm at with the Aussie. I'm same with the euro, and the pound is going to. I think the pound of the lot is going to give me a clearer signal because of this confluence area that we've got, the two pivots and the resistance trend line that's sitting there. I think if we can stay above those, then I don't want to even think short. I'll be thinking long and maybe looking for an opportunity to get in off a dip. So that's where I'm at, mate. As far as the major is concerned, I think it's a very, very interesting point of the day, and we'll get a bit of a signal with the close of this bar and maybe the next bar. Did you sort yourself out?
Yes, we are sorted out. Yeah.
Right. Have we got a trade?
Yeah, the trade is on. The trade is on. Now, what I'm doing here is let me just quickly show you this. So I've shorted the pound here, but sorry, the pound, euro pound. I'm going to show you it on two charts here. The idea is going to be, I'll put the stops well out of the way, but the idea with this one will be if we close above this weekly pivot, then I will come out because I don't really want to stick with this trade. If you know, the weekly pivot should act as a decent area of resistance. Stops are well out of the way, so it just makes it a kind of a cheaper trade, if you like. Because you know, from this point to this point, you know, we can look at that as a 1% trade, but from this point to this point, sorry, from this point to this point, it looks more like a fifth of that. But I do kind of I do believe that if this is going to fail at this point, if this can start to come down to at this particular point, then we could see a decent move to the downside. This may even be a left shoulder, head right shoulder here, and then we might start to see this move down. We can start thinking about maybe even taking profit if this does start to collapse, because if we get down to this point, let me just measure this up for everybody. So we're looking at probably what is around about a 12 pip trade, pretty much. So that means that if we come down to this point here, the 12 pips from entry is going to be 58, 56, 46. It's about there. Yeah, somewhere around about there, but I won't look for that. I'll look for this one. So if we can come down to this point, because it's still a little bit tenuous, if we can somehow get down to this particular point here, then we can start thinking about taking half off and then shoving the stops into these highs, because we'll look for the weekly pivot then to give us a potential high. And then see if we can just leave the trade, and we can just ignore it then and see if we can get anything significant. Because as I say, I don't think there's anything that we have until kind of December. I think is when they'll probably be meeting in Parliament to try and get this passed through. So you know, sometime around about the December time, we can maybe see if we can hold on to this for a little bit longer and see if we do get that drift to the downside. But let's take profit here just to make the trade safe, and then see if we can actually, you know, well, I say let's take profit here. The plan is going to be to take profit here. So the plan will be take profit at this area if we can, and move those stops in just above the weekly pivot. That'll give us a tiny bit of profit anyway, because we're aiming for what looks like around about 23 pips, and the actual area that we're looking for to move those stops is around about 12 pips. So that'll give us a little bit of profit anyway if we can get down here, and then we can just see if it'll run. But I think the most important thing for, you know, something like this is to make the trade safe, because the pound is still kind of tenuous, isn't it? We still don't really know what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, it has closed. The 30-minute candle has closed above the bar being the weekly pivot. I'll just take the screen and go through that. What it has done, I suppose, is given us this scenario. So I'm anything but convinced yet. Anything but convinced. It's kind of given us this scenario.
Yeah.
Where we've still got a box. You can probably, no, that's about where it is, I reckon. This candle here is interesting, and if this candle closes both sides of, on the low side of both of these pivots, I think that's probably where there's an entry. There could well be an entry here if that's the case, and I'll be looking for that. So I want this candle to actually take the pivots back out. That'll give me the double. That'll give me the double cross. It'll give me a double cross. In fact, it'll give me a triple double cross, because it'll be a break and retest of both the daily and weekly pivots, but also the resistance trade line. So that may well be a good one for me. It's also, if you look at this, and I guess you could have traded it this way, as a higher low here off this bar. I couldn't trade that, as I said before, because of the daily and weekly pivots. But it's kind of a signal bar for me, if you like. It's telling me that this is on, and that's what I'll look for when I get a second opportunity. But too risky for me to trade that, definitely. So if I do get this retest here and the double cross of the weekly pivot, the daily pivot, and the trend line, then that gives me the license to do it. It gives you a bad entry price, if you like, in respect to this one here, but a far safer one as far as I'm concerned. So we'll keep our eye on that on the pound. The euro is not as simple, because we've still got the weekly pivot ahead of us, and I'd really like to have seen that test the weekly pivot, then give me something to the downside, some sort of signal to the downside. But I don't see this as clear in any way, shape, or form yet. I'd like to see something down here, and if I do get a reversal bar with a higher low, a higher low, yes. I always get those confused when I'm talking. Yeah. A higher low here, in particular on the daily pivot, would be very, very interesting. I wish I had a pen to describe that, but if we come off the weekly pivot down to the daily pivot, then put in a reversal bar, I think that'd be a pretty strong bullish sign. Not that I'm looking for it, because I'm still bearish, but if that were to be the case, it would be hard not to take that long at that point. The Aussie, as I said before, is on a bit of a tear. I definitely have to see this pull back substantially if I was to trade it. And the reason for that is because I'm at a level I don't trade through, and that is DR2. And you were speaking about the pivots earlier, and the pivots are pretty much the way I trade. I trade right around the pivots on the 30-minute chart. And if I get the signal that says you're in a no-go zone, then that's exactly what I do. And this is a no-go zone for me. It's too low a probability in terms of what happens on a daily basis with the euro and the Aussie. Not so much to the pound to a large degree, but the euro and the Aussie tend to stay pretty neatly packed inside a day, and that day is DR1 and 2 most definitely, and DS1 and 2 most definitely. I don't like to trade outside of that zone. Would I be looking for a short here on that basis? Well, why not? There's no reason not to look for a short here for me. In particular, whilst we're below this level here, because we're still in lower high territory. It's not by any stretch a clear picture for me, because we've got this higher low and we've got this lower high here. So we're under the influence of both at the moment until I get another lower high here in a reversal bar. I have to stay out until we get a decent retracement. So they're going to be a little bit tough. Haven't really looked at the minors. I don't normally look at the minors on a Monday. And the reason for that is I want to find out what the majors are doing before I actually look to trade crosses. So I don't really want to go outside that today, mate. I don't think, except to note that we are looking at a very weak. What am I looking for? Looking for the Forex factory. Where is it? There. So if I look at comparisons, and let's change this a little bit. I'm looking at the last, where are we? About 12 hours, not even 12 hours, about 10 hours, but I can't dial up 10 hours. So let's go 12 hours and 48 hours. So that should take into account the weekend, pretty much, and what's happened since we opened this morning. And across the board, you can see that there is greenback, or not across the board, sorry, against the yen, the greenback is still holding its own, if not powering on, but against every other currency, every other major, it is suffering. So that's the conclusion I draw. Whether that's a retracement or whether that's what we're going to expect for the rest of the day, of course, is another story. You can see how strong the Aussie is. The Aussie against the yen, comparative to the dollar and comparative to the pound, is super strong. You know, it's up 1% nearly.
Well, the Aussie.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, it's been amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the superpower of the day so far. And I think, you know, on that basis, you're probably looking for retracements on Aussie yen, if I'm looking at this, or retracement on the Aussie to get into it long. But the Kiwi is also on fire. Don't know what the Kiwi is doing against the yen, but it's performing even better than the Aussie is against the dollar, which is interesting. I don't trade the Kiwi, but on the strength of what I'm seeing here, the Aussie is the strongest major.
Yeah.
And retracement on the Aussie gets me interested if I can trade it long. But it has to be a deep one for me because I can't trade into that DR2 area. So a little bit frustrating, but, you know, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it, with the Aussie, because the FTSE 100 has rallied significantly from its lows. It's up 100 pips plus from that original low that we saw on Friday, and we seem to have a risk-on appetite today, and that's given the Aussie some life. And it's really interesting because, you know, I've been talking to some people recently that are convinced that the Aussie is a short, and maybe it is. You know, maybe actually this the rally that's been going on the Aussie makes it an interesting prospect to look for a higher price to look for those shorts. But these are fundamentalists that are convinced that the Aussie, you know, the Australian economy cannot sustain any kind of rally.
Yeah, look, they're seeing house prices come off at the moment in the major cities. No big surprise there because that had to happen. They were just going nuts for ages, and they're seeing those sort of signs as bearish the Aussie, obviously. But you know, there are other things at play. The Aussie economy is not it's ticking along okay. You know, it's not doing too bad. Right. And you're also seeing commodity prices. If commodity prices, you know, hold up or even get better, then there's no way the Aussie's going short anytime, in my humble opinion, anyway, because you know, it relies very much on it. Trade wars is a big one for the Aussie, and you know, whilst that's I guess in limbo, or they're talking this week, aren't they? Trump and Xi.
This is the thing, and I think this is probably, again, why we're starting to see, you know, whether it's a relief rally or something significant, I don't know. And this is what caught me on Friday, you know, because and this is the tricky thing about having your bias, isn't it? Because my bias on the FTSE was for a long, but the problem was I just couldn't get the price that I needed, and even though my timing on the day was right, you know, I was picking the right day to go long. Last Friday was a great day to go long. I just couldn't I couldn't get the right price. You know, it kept falling when it looked like it was going to rally, and it's ended up being a pretty difficult trade for me, actually. And it's, as I say, it's really taken off today, which is a bit more difficult to swallow. But
You're very,
as we
very,
know.
very, very disciplined, mate. Not to swear. It's okay. Just think of another word.
Yeah, yeah.
Patient.
Well, you know, it's one of those, isn't it? That we know that they you know, another trade will come around. I think the issue is that these really lovely sweeps in the market don't tend to come around as often as every day. You know, they sort of once every maybe once every week, maybe twice in a week, you will get these really lovely sweeps. But I've missed this sweep, which is a little frustrating. But you know, as I say, there'll be another one next week or the week after. It's not a big deal.
Well, you got one the week before, so you know, as you say, it's not possible to get everyone. It's just not simply not.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, it's not. I think it's the thing that uh, there's almost nothing worse when you have a bias and it happens your way, but you just you know, you were just slightly off on the timing, and slightly off on the timing is a massive distance when you're trading.
Yeah, look, happens often. In particular to me, because generally I haven't traded on Mondays or Fridays. So
Yeah,
you know, you can wait all week. You know it's going to happen. You think, right, I just need to time this right. Just get everything in place. All good, all good. Wednesday goes, nothing there. Thursday goes, oh, it's nearly there, not quite. No, I'll have to wait till next week. And then Friday, bang, away she goes.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah,
Here we go.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, there's nothing worse, is there? When you've kind of, well, but the market definitely has been, you know, it's been given some amazing Fridays recently, and Monday. You know, we got sort of like, in fact, the two best days to trade at the end of bookended last week and the start of this week has been Friday and Monday. Entry on a Friday, and probably people will look to close it today, and they've made 100 pips out of the FTSE, 100 pips plus out of the FTSE if they manage to get in right on the lows, which actually wasn't that difficult. You know, it was there. There was a trade at the lows, but you've really got to be waiting for the low to take those trades. I don't think you can have this this idea that you're going to wait for a setup, because this just didn't really offer a setup. You know, or there was a very, very loose setup, but yeah, it was just you know, let me show you the frustration with the FTSE and what happened, because this was it was a hideous market for me to try and trade. This was what I was doing last week. There was one more trade that I had at the end of last week, and it was on a 5-minute chart on the Friday. And my final trade was when it started to rally here. So we got the break. We got another break here. So my last entry was here.
Yep.
And as soon as I saw that crash down and fail here, I took my trade off. And then what happened? Boom. Boom.
Mangoes, your mangoes.
And boom. Yeah. So you know, it's a frustrating game, isn't it? But
of course it is.
But you know, you've got to be
you've
got to be professional. It's part of the, well, yeah, it is part of the fun, and I think the key is to recognise that you know, you've always got to recognise that you can do it. It's just that that sometimes the market just doesn't behave in the way that you want it to. And sometimes you do have to just adapt a little bit. And the only way I could have adapted would have been by going in one more time when it kind of came back to these lows. But again, as I say, that would have been a difficult trade for me, because the 5-minute chart looked to me like it had broken structure. And this by this time the market had closed, and I just don't trade at those times of day. You know, I don't particularly like those times of day to trade. So yeah, it did make the whole prospect just that little bit too difficult.
Yeah, look, it'll be the same tomorrow. You know, if the pound moves 150 pips today to the upside, you know, we're all going to say, oh, you know, we should have been in that. But the reality is, you can think one thing, but you have to act another. You have to act as if everything you've done for the past 10 years has taught you to do what you must do next.
Yep.
And if you don't stick to that, you know, if you're not prepared to to actually go by that, then you're doing something else, and that's
Yeah.
not trading; it's gambling.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's two ways you could play this today. For mine, you could take a high risk trade, and I could have taken it on this bar here.
Oh, we're looking at the pound
The
dollar,
pound
right?
US dollar, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we wake up in the morning and the pound's up here, we're going to say, oh, we've missed that trade. And the truth of it is, we missed a move. We didn't miss a trade.
Yeah.
There is a trade here, but it's maximum risk. It's super high risk. And there's a way to approach that, and that is to put very, very small amount of capital into an area if you're prepared to trade high risk trades. Sometimes that's a good plan. Other times it's not. It gets you the right price, but I can't say 9 times out of 10. I can't even say 5 times out of 10 or 6 times out of 10. But more often than not, in my opinion, you'll get a chance anyway at some stage to follow where your bias is going. It may not be the best move, but it should get you something. It should get you something. To have some skin in the game on high risk trades is a strategy, and I've got no problem with it as long as you don't freak out when you get smashed. 3 times out of 5 or whatever the case may be. And that's the danger, and I hate losing, so that's why I don't take these high risk trades, because you do get knocked over more than you don't, and that's no
well, you're absolutely right, isn't it? Because actually, and again, and this is another quote of the day scenario, isn't it? Because there are different types of traders out there. There are the traders that are happy to take a lot of losses, but they'll wait for the big one.
Yep, and they can still win, no problem.
Oh yeah, and they do win. And then there are traders that just don't they just don't handle losing very well. And then that's you. So why would you take trades that don't suit your character?
Absolutely, you'd be off your rocker, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. To take trades like that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you are much better off, trading your personality as much as your strategy.
Yeah, and look, the other thing is, if I'm right and it is a high risk trade, and price fails here, it'll get underneath here. It'll probably give me a short.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. There's 2 ways to look at this. Always 2 ways to look at it. There's never, and that's why we don't trade 50 or 100% of our stake ever, because there's always 2 ways. You can make a case. In most instances, you can make a case for something in the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
Whether it be, from a technical point of view or a fundamental over technical point of view, whatever the case may be, most times you can make a case. And certainly if you look back, you can say, oh, yeah, well, I can see that. Yeah.
Well, do you know what? This is why I love that line in the Kenny Rogers tune. Every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's really what he's saying, isn't it?
What
he's saying is you can make a case to have a bad hand and still win if you play it right, and the table is kind to you.
Or you've got big enough kahunas in poker, for instance. I sat in on a few poker games, and man, some of those guys are unbelievable.
But what if you're up against somebody else that's got big kahunas and you don't realize it? So you end up bluffing them, and all they end up doing is bluffing you back, and then tearing you up. So that's the other thing about and sometimes it's not about kahunas, is it? Sometimes it's just you might have big kahunas because that's your strategy, but you might be up against somebody that just is quite happy to gamble on pure stupidity. But because they're so random and you're not used to that kind of player, you end up losing.
Yep. Not a game for me. I enjoy watching it, but I don't enjoy the play.
Yeah.
Mano Mano. It's a very, very interesting game. There's no doubt about that.
What's that, poker?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So where's your trade at, mate? You're still around entry there, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just not at this stage playing ball. But I think the good thing for me about this particular trade, the daily pivot. Are you on my screen or your screen? your screen. The daily pivot is going to be the problem area for me. It needs to take that daily pivot out, because really, you know, where I want to start taking profit is really around this monthly pivot, and I think that'd be a great place to take profit. I was looking for a bit lower, but actually that'd be a really good place to take profit, because we are likely to get a bounce. Hey, Angus, what do you think about this trade, mate? Yeah, monthly pivot, or but yeah, so we need to take out this daily pivot, which might be a difficult prospect, but the monthly pivot's the key. That's the place to take profit. You know, we'll see if we can. If we can break down. We'll see if we can take profit in this monthly pivot. Tuck the stops in. That'll give us a profit on the day, and potentially a decent trade. If this monthly pivot breaks down, then we should really have a decent run. And as I say, that's going to be the real key, you know, to the success of a long-term trade here. Because the monthly pivot, let me just mark it off on a daily chart. I can't put pivots on these charts because it starts looking really messy on the longer term charts. But I'm gonna just put it on. So it's 88.42, which is around about there, which is not that significant a price when it comes down to the rest of where price has been and gone to. But if it can break the monthly pivot, probably, you know, I think what we're potentially looking for, if we're looking at that on a daily chart, sorry, on an hourly chart, maybe it can break down the monthly pivot, bounce here, and then test the monthly pivot and then start to go. But you know, as I say, you can see that that if we can break down these lows, the next point of call is potentially going to be all the way down here. So so there's plenty of room here. You know, even where those stops currently survive, there's plenty of room here for a 2-to-1 on a longer term stop. But as I say, I want to tuck my stop in here. Really, I just want to see this just give me the chance to take profit here and then tuck my stops in, so I can just ignore this. But yeah, as you say, Matt, at this stage in time, it's not really playing ball, and I think I would have hoped by early trading that the confidence in the pound would have come through.
I was just about to say exactly that. I'm surprised that that really we've gone not too far at all since London Open.
No, we haven't gone anywhere, have we? And you know, the fact that the FTSE has rallied significantly shows that there is some appetite out there for trading, but certainly not at this stage with the pound. So there's not really a lot I can do just right now. I just gotta sit and wait and see what happens. But we've got to be just highly careful about this particular area here. That's the real key issue with this, and it's a pretty tight range. You see, the problem is I've entered on a 5-minute chart. You know, I've seen this breakdown a little bit. Nice bar there as well, and it's started to break down. But usually my entry chart, if it takes out the highs of where I would have suspected that the high of the trend would be, I'd want to get out. But I'm not going to do that on this occasion, because I do see this as a longer term play. So if this area gets taken out, then I will probably assume that I've probably picked wrong, but I'm going to stick with it until this area gets taken out, and then close the trade altogether. But that's really all I can do. You know, it's a potential for a nice, really long-term move. But maybe there's just not quite enough confidence just yet, and maybe I've missed something. You know, from my to my mind, this doesn't really kick into play until December. But maybe I've missed something. You know, you're asking me, is there a possibility to go short? Maybe there is. Maybe I've missed some detail and information, which I will have a little mine around for the rest of the day and see if there's a reason for me to maybe close this trade and wait for a different opportunity, or maybe wait for some more information.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a reason. There's a suspicion in my mind that if they're not prepared to buy, then probably they're prepared to sell. So that's all I've got. You know,
that's a good point.
It's pie in the sky stuff, but maybe they're willing to sell to the bottom of the range, and that's kind of where I'm thinking. But still, you know, in the next 5 minutes, if I was to see selling come in and exactly what I was looking for on the pound, we retested this trend line, I'd still go long, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that all changes. That really all changes if we get more consolidation here at these pivots. Then we come back underneath them and retest from below. So, you know, it's one or the other for mine. I don't see us staying here today. I see us going. I see us going here or here.
Yeah.
And maybe just maybe we can trade it down to the bottom here, and then pick up the long down here. You know, maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah. That kind of makes sense. Yeah, but I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know the pound has done the same thing, but I just wonder. You know, this is this is why earlier I was using the word drift to the upside rather than explode to the upside, because I just wonder with the pound whether we are more likely to get something a bit more gentle. You know, we've now had the deal. Maybe just people are a little bit exhausted of flying in and flying out of this, and they're really waiting for something a little bit more significant. So they will tentatively trade this, but maybe with a lack of gusto and a lack of confidence. I don't know.
Yeah, certainly that's what we're seeing at the moment. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got the other point of view, I suppose, because I look at this and I can't get this out of my head. You know, that's on the rumor, right?
No, that was I think that was actually the actual news conference. You know, that was some of the news conference that Theresa May, not news conference. I think she was in Parliament giving a speech to Parliament. That's when she was talking to Parliament.
But that's what I mean. As you said before, she was talking about what she believed was going to happen. So it hadn't happened. It was a rumor, if you like.
Yeah.
And the market always does that: buys on the rumor, sells on the result. But the result isn't negative, and that's the interesting part, and that's why I'm a little bit stunned. Well, I don't say I'm stunned because it doesn't stun me anymore. It just gives me a little bit of a mild shock that we haven't exploded because of that bar. You know, if they're willing to buy on the rumor here, and then the fact actually comes, what's changed their mind?
Well, maybe it's the interviews. Maybe it was the interviews over the weekend, because you know the interviews were given by some significant players. As I say, Eileen Foster's a very, very significant part of Theresa May's government and power, and the Conservatives' government and power. So maybe that's what it's about. Maybe it's just the fact that the interviews have poured cold water at this stage, and what people maybe what people want to see is just to hear whether Theresa May can actually convince some people to come with her, and that's her job now. Her job, the next aspect of her job, and the next aspect of this journey for her, is to see if she can convince some of the MPs to come with her. And there's a few, you know, there's a few out there that will go with her, but the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg. And Boris Johnson and David Davis and Dominic Raab, that they're not going to go with her, and they'll be having meetings of their own to see whether they want to oust Theresa May and potentially risk losing power altogether for their party, or whether they just kind of like want to go with it and see if they can you know, maybe fight another day, fight the battle on another occasion on another day. So I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because usually with this kind of thing, the cause of weakness in any market comes from a lack of information. But we kind of got that information now. You know, oftentimes it just kind of comes from it kind of seems to more often than not it seems to come from the uncertainty, but we kind of got a little bit of certainty back in play. So you know, it is a little bit surprising.
Okay, that news is now, isn't it? 9 o'clock. What was the news? Can't remember.
Just starting to see the euro drift to the downside a little bit here. It's just tested the daily pivot against the pound.
Okay, yellow news. German IFO business climate. Right. They had some bad numbers, didn't they, in Germany, I believe?
They didn't have good numbers at all. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what were the IFO? Well, they were a little bit weak, aren't they? Maybe that's what we've been waiting on.
Market's still not doing too much on the pound.
It's not, is it? And it's it actually those numbers have caused a little bit of a sell-off and then a buyback. I'm just seeing that the orders around about the daily pivot with the euro have just kicked in. So whether they can, let me just show you this. This is the bar really right now. So the orders kind of kicked in down here, and the bar is just a little bit more bullish. So might well have taken out a few stops down there.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm still not seeing any answers. I think I'd probably still rather be long the pound than not. And that seems to be trying to break to the upside at the moment. But still no way in there for me, except on a guess.
Yeah.
Euro. Interesting bar, the last one, the rejection of the weekly pivot. But again, we're having a crack at it again. The market looks bullish, really does. I'm seeing dollar weakness here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not over and done with yet. I'll still look for those things that I was looking for before. Short the euro still. Trade wise, I can't trade it long, so I might as well look for a possibility short.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm short euro as well.
Same on the pound.
Again, we've got what have we got in December? There's another potential hike in December, isn't there?
I think they've tempered that a little bit. They were spruiking that all year, or
Yeah.
certainly the second half of the year, that they were going to go in December. But I think that has tempered a bit. I think I was reading that yesterday somewhere. Maybe that's why the dollar. Maybe that's why the dollar's weak.
I can see that. So I didn't know that. Where did you pick that up? So but they're saying that there probably won't be a.
I don't think they're saying that there won't. I think they're saying that instead of it being, a 75 or 80% chance that they will, it's now around a 50-50.
Okay.
I think that's what I read somewhere.
Okay, interesting.
Some stage. Yeah, it is. Maybe that's what we're seeing.
Right. Okay. So that's why we're seeing some dollar weakness step in a little bit.
Could well be, mate. Could well be. I'll have another look at that. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good to know where we are with that. Yeah, because we got dollar weakness right across the board, really, haven't we?
At the moment, we do. Yep. That said, we're at resistance on the euro. Kind of at resistance. I wouldn't call it hard resistance on the pound, but it's there. The Aussie's coming to the highs as well. So, yeah. Still anything can happen today, I reckon.
Okay, mate. Well, let's push off, and we'll be cracking in again tomorrow.
We'll try one show, shall we?
We'll try one show. Yes, yeah, we will. Yeah. So do you want to send it to me, or shall I send it to you?
I'll send it to you. It's my turn this week, I think.
Okay. All right. Brilliant, mate. All right. I will look for you tomorrow. Well, yeah. Everybody else have a happy trading. We're going to stick with this euro pound. I guess everybody knows what the deal is. The last 5-minute bar has been bit of a rough bar. Lots and lots of indecision, but everybody knows the plan. Out of the weekly pivot, out above the weekly pivot. We get a close above the weekly pivot. We're just going to come straight out and look for the monthly pivot to take profit. That's the idea, and then shove stops above the weekly pivot. So that's the idea with that one. Let's see how it goes.
Right, mate. Happy days.
All right, buddy. Have a evening time where you are.
Yeah, I'm just about to have dinner. It's now 8 p.m. dinner time.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Have a nice dinner, and I'll speak to you in the morning.
Cheers, mate.
See you, buddy.